moving on to a conversation that's drifted into the SEC. The ACC's already figured out their scheduling format going forward. I was amused by Nick Saban's comments about their three proposed opponents, common permanent opponents year to year, because the SEC is working through that right now. The conference has doled out the three opponents to each school. Now the ADs and the administrations vet that out, and they're going to figure that out here in the next few months and try to get a consensus. And when presented with LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn, Nick Saban made some kind of comment like, I don't know who makes these decisions and how they come up with that, which those three are probably the most obvious of almost any school in the country of what three opponents you would get. So as we move this on to the Big Ten.
Yeah, they played those three schools every year since the 40s probably.
Yeah, so. They are the two for sure, Tennessee and Auburn. Those are legitimate rivals. And certainly, yes, LSU, Alabama attached at the hip in the SEC Western Division and one of the biggest TV rating draws every year. That's obvious. Moving to the Big Ten and Ohio State, if that 3-6-6 model becomes the thing, which it apparently will be, Steve, we'll start with you in regards to what do you think should be the lineup for the Buckeyes?
Well, Michigan obviously would be one. I think Penn State would be two. And three, I don't really have a strong feeling. Illinois was a school that they played every year, one way or the other, up through about 10 or 15 years ago when they kind of went away from that. And probably as they added Nebraska and then Maryland and Rutgers, it became harder to maintain. Plus, they were in the other division eventually. So I think the first two are obvious. The third one could be literally anybody. And I can't think it would be USC. That would just be, you'd be going out there every other year. Good God, you don't want that. The most you want to go to the West Coast in this thing is like twice in a 4-year period, not on a 3 in a 4-year period or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm ambivalent about the third one.
Kevin, what's your take?
Well, Michigan is obvious. I'm not sold on Penn State. Penn State views Ohio State as its rival. Ohio State does not view Penn State as its rival. Obviously, it is the second largest television draw of conference games in the Big Ten, only behind Ohio State and Michigan. But if I'm trying to maximize my television dollars, why not USC? Why not? If you're going to sit there and forego the yearly Ohio State Penn State game, you have to have another game that is going to be a huge draw. Steve mentions, you don't want to go out there that much. Well, somebody's got to. And if we don't see a situation of where Oregon and Washington or whatever happens and we create a true Western pod of the Big Ten and they are each other's rivals, granted, if you go up from a 16-team league to 18 or 20, what does the math turn into at that point? So I'll say Michigan, USC. Ohio State only has one trophy game, and it's for that big wooden turtle. So let's throw Illinois in there. And I don't particularly like the thought of every other year trip to Champaign. It's kind of a boring trip. we do get to go eat at Beef House right on the Indiana-Illinois state line, which is a good thing.
The I&I Club right there.
Salad bar, as opposed to, they've really they're still talking about COVID and changing the world order. You still don't get to go to the salad bar there, which is disappointing. But yeah, Michigan, USC, and Illinois for me.
Yeah, I've done this several times, and I don't think Ohio State needs to stick with Penn State, but I think they will. And I think if you're adding, I don't see the Big Ten adding UCLA and USC and not putting one of those two with Ohio State and probably the other with Michigan. That it makes too much television sense, and you'd be leaving something on the table if you didn't do that. And that's completely unfair to Ohio State to have to play those 3 programs. But moving to a 12-team playoff, there, and the final rankings last year before the playoffs, before like the final regular season rankings last year, of the top 12, there were 5 2-loss teams and 2 3-loss teams. So Ohio State could conceivably go 1-2 in those games and have a 2-loss season, be 10-2, and then whatever else happens after that, and still make the playoffs. So yeah, that's going to be a very difficult schedule, but it doesn't necessarily keep them out of the playoffs because those losses would be good losses, assuming those teams are in the playoffs. And and any win that Ohio State gets over those programs, obviously it's going to be beneficial. It is a lot. We say it's a lot, but really, if you look at the programs, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, I think the people who live in reality will see that there's only really one national title contender, and that's USC. The others are like, I see you raise your eyebrow. Michigan is not a national title contender. They will never win a national title with Jim Harbaugh. They can go so far, and they don't have the overall skill and depth to and dynamic playmaking to go beyond that. USC, I think, will have enough playmakers to do that. Will they ever have the defense? I think eventually they will, but how much defense? You just need to be able to win a game 50-45, basically. So, USC will eventually even have a defense at some point, maybe. Penn State will always just, be a thorn in the shoe type of thing, where now it's stuck in the sock and you're not looking, and then you drive off a cliff and you've now lost at Penn State. So it would be a tough ask because those are all probably any given year in the top 10. But really, USC is perhaps the only title contender of those 3.
I don't disagree with you. I just think that's a bold statement. I don't necessarily completely agree with you, but I do think that there's a straight correlation between recruiting rankings and college football playoff winners, and Michigan's not recruiting at the level that they need to win a national championship.
I will say Michigan has a better chance perhaps in a 12 team because other teams could perhaps knock off the teams that they would never be able to. So I still don't see it happening, but they'd have a better chance if somebody beats Georgia or Alabama for them, like in Ohio State, and then they face Ohio State in the finals, and we know what can happen there. I will also say Ohio State going out every other year to California, I don't know if they would hate that I think they wouldn't mind that for recruiting purposes, but then you still have to go play the game.
And if the Pac-12 can't pull together a deal that is attractive and sufficient for a number of schools, we'll see what the plight of that league is, of course.
I don't even know if attractive is
come along.
I think it's just they have to pull something that's not insulting. I mean, Apple TV, Ion TV. I mean,
WeTV.
I think that they could be less visible than Pac-12 Network, and they're well on their way.
WB.
Exactly. I mean, hell, put them on MTV. MTV doesn't air any music to begin with.
MTV2.
Put them on there between a special edition of the Jersey Shore Family Reunion and 16 and Pregnant, or whatever that show's called. I mean, it's,
oh my God,
the Pac-12.
That's the Big Ten.
Is in. They're on the table right now, and they're coding. That's for you, Sue, as a Dr. El Suzabo. They're coding. It's not going to go well. I don't think they're going to come out the end of this well. I mean, going out and getting SMU and SDSU to bolster the TV rankings, we know what part of the things have to be. And even if you bring them in on an unequal share, you're still having to feed 2 more mouths at that point. And I understand those 2 mouths are replacing USC and UCLA, but there's just not going to be enough money there. And Oregon and Washington think way too highly of themselves, as they should, to be getting pennies on the dollar compared to other programs. And Uncle Phil can write as many checks as he wants to. It's not going to matter at the end of the day when that yearly income is not there from the media rights deal.